Hello.
Hi, Jackie. Great to see you. Oh. Hi, Jackie. Can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Very good. Thanks. All right. I would like to call to order the Select Board meeting for February 7th, 2023. Since we have some remote participation, we are going to do a roll call to get started. So, Jackie, can you confirm that you are on Zoom?
Yes, here.
And then the rest of us that are here. Carlo?
Here.
Chris?
Here.
And Mark here. And Karen is going to be a few minutes late, but she'll be joining us as well. Tonight's agenda, I'm going to just give a quick overview of tonight's discussion. We'll start with public comment. We'll do select board liaison town manager reports. I'm going to ask that we go slightly out of order and allow the town clerk to do the election update. Then we'll have a discussion and vote to approve a new town manager employment contract that should be read as town manager new employment contract as opposed to new town manager employment contract. We will have a public hearing somewhere around 7:45 to talk about Hopkins and Main Street intersection. Presentation from the Board of Public Works on trash and recycling barrels. You can see the barrel in the corner of the room right now. Fidel's going to give us a preview of the April town meeting warrant. We will start our discussion on town manager 2023 goals. We'll then have a discussion and vote to sign the lease extension for the Reading Ice Arena Authority. We'll discuss future agendas, approve meeting minutes, and then we have both an open session and executive session to focus on the responses to the request for proposals to purchase property for municipal use. And then the executive session will be under Purpose 6. We'll have a motion that covers that. So why don't we get started? I think we have people in the audience that would like to make public comment. So what we would ask you to do is when I call on you to please come up to the podium, give us your name, your address. We ask that you spend about 2 minutes, if that can work out in terms of length of comments. And then we kind of go from there. So are there folks that would like to make public comment? Please, Ann. Sorry, I saw your hand first, just barely though.
Good evening.
Hi.
I'm Ann Mark. I'm a member of a volunteer group here in Reading called Reading Composts. And I'm here with Allison Sillers and Susan Bowe, who are also members. Reading Composts informs folks about food waste composting and encourages food waste composting. We often talk about a company called Black Earth Compost because they happen to be the company that comes into Reading currently to pick up food waste compost at residences. And when we started in 2020, there were about 75 subscribers in Reading. There are now 426 households that subscribe to food waste composting. And we think that this shows two things. One is a growing interest in food waste composting, understanding of the environmental benefits. The other thing that it shows is that town staff have just been super supportive of this and have helped in so many ways. At the DB in town and at the DPW, certainly Fidel, Jane Kinsella, Chris Cole. They've instituted the program whereby new subscribers can get free bins to get them started with Black Earth. They've helped with publicity. They've got food waste composting front and center on the website. It's just been great to get more interest started. Speaking of folks in the town system, I'd also like to mention folks in the school department. Superintendent Michalewski, Steve Burnham, principal at Birch Meadow, Heather Leonard, who's the STEM coordinator, and Catherine Franzetti, who's the food services coordinator. They've gotten a pilot program started at Birch Meadow at one of the lunches in order to compost the food waste that's left over afterwards. And that is just going great. And again, it's another instance of support from the town for this environmentally beneficial and potentially municipally beneficial program. And we just want to extend our thanks and appreciation for everything that's been done. So thank you all very much.
Thanks, Ann. Man, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, otherwise I'd call it. But I'm about to find out.
Hello, my name is Ellen Rockefeller. I live at 47 Oak Street here in Reading. I've been a resident for 40 years, more than 40 years. I'm active in the Reading Garden Club, and I was on, and still am, on the steering committee for the new community garden. I have to say that Ann was saying how appreciative her committee is. We were very, very pleased with the cooperation of all the town employees and leaders, and also with the volunteers who were members of the committees that helped us. They were cooperative, they were creative, and if you haven't been to the Matera Cabin, please do go there, and we're expanding up the hill thanks to some wonderful grants, so that's very exciting. I'm here tonight because I have a concern about the new trash and recycling program. I'm a senior citizen. I see the bin over here, and I actually went to Home Depot yesterday to take a look at the bin. And you were very nice to pick it up. I don't know that I would be able to. I had a lot of trouble even pulling it out. The concern that I and others have is the large capacity. Many of us are quite happy right now with the 16 or 18 gallon recycling bin that we have. That will now be that size, which is a lot of extra capacity. And then also for the trash collection. But the concerns that we have has to do with the size, the weight, the awkward shape, getting it back and forth to the ends of our driveway, and then where do we store these large containers? So we're worried about that. Many of us, as I say, don't really need that kind of large capacity. And as Ann mentioned, there are a lot of people using the black earth composting, which really will reduce some of the trash that we have, because it's not like regular composting, which you might have in your yard now, where you never put meat, bones, or fat. But with black earth, you're able to use all those things in their compost system. So we can have a much more comprehensive composting, which we think will be good. I don't know whether, I just wrote up my concerns. I'm sure you heard what my concerns are. Pass it along, you can jump up and see Mark. Now.
Thank you.
And then you have anybody else. Anyway, that's just my comment. And as I say, the size is quite large. I would have trouble picking that up to move that anywhere, and that's empty. That's 25 pounds, I believe. Is that correct, Fidel?
If it's 25 pounds empty, I'm not sure. I haven't weighed it, but
Well, that's, I
I can look into that.
The dimensions, and the one I looked at was 25 pounds.
Okay.
Empty.
I can look into it. Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Allison, please.
I'm far less organized. My name is Allison Sillers, Precinct 2, and I'm here also with Reading Composts. And I think some of the things that Ann and Ellen said really resonated for me, but where I come from and why I joined Reading Compost is because I'm a parent. I have 2 kids. I have a 10-year-old at Killam in 5th grade, and I have a 7th grader, a 13-year-old, had to think about it for a second, he turned 13 in December, at Parker. And so for me, thinking about all of this is really thinking comprehensively when I think about rubbish and all of that. Obviously, I'm a taxpayer, so numbers matter. Our rubbish bill is going up. It went, in the most recent budget, it's going up like 3.6%. And when I was on town meeting a couple years ago, even more. And I know that when we go back up for a contract, it'll go up more. And for us, for our family, because we compost, our rubbish is significantly lighter. So when you look at tonnage and waste, I was just looking at the EPA's website, the Mass DEP website, and Reading averages per household something like 1,750 pounds to 2,000 pounds. That's a ton per year per household, which is just bananas. And if I think about anecdotally my household weight, the vast majority of my household weight is actually in our compost bin and our recycle bin, both of which are going into a stream that's not going into a burn bin or a landfill. So for me, thinking about it, it's really about teaching our kids, which is why I'm super appreciative of the work that Steve has been doing at Birch Meadow, Principal Burnham, and Heather Leonard, and the work that she's been doing. We have high school students involved. It's really sort of a grassroots thing from elementary all the way through high school and in the community. And so for me, it's really important as we think about standardizing our bins or we think about streamlining to reduce our rubbish bills, I think it's super important to include composting in that, because not only does it change the cost benefit analysis, it's also super important for the world that we leave for our kids. Because, you know, when I talk to my kids, I want to talk to them about how can we keep living in the world and making it a better place? How can we do better? How can they do better than I did, than my parents did? And I think composting is part of that picture.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak in public comment? Anybody online, Caitlin?
No one raising their hand.
Fair warning. All right, why don't we roll to liaison reports? And sorry, before we do that, I'm derelict here. Tonight's meeting is being recorded for RCTV Live, Comcast, and now Xfinity Channel 22 of Verizon Channel 33, and the videographer for tonight's meeting is Rob. Sorry, Rob, for not saying that sooner. So let's do liaison reports. Carla, you want to start us off?
Yeah, sure. Nothing for me, except that unfortunately CPDC met last night and didn't have quorum. Member resigned, and a member couldn't make it. Notified the chair, and another member didn't know where that person was. If they didn't know that the date was, they had the date right, or they were traveling, so. They couldn't meet last night, and we discussed offline the need. So I'll use this as a PSA for volunteers. We really need volunteers on many boards, especially the big land boards, CPDC, zoning, conservation. There's many boards, but go to the town website. Please volunteer. Jackie and Chris would be happy to interview you, and that's it. Yeah, it was. I know it happens every now and then, but it doesn't happen to the big boards. So they were caught off guard. So some stuff got delayed. They'll try to meet next week.
Thanks, Phil. Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I guess to follow up on the composting thing, the school committee approved their FY24 budget, and Catherine Franzetti also gave her presentation there. And I had the pleasure of going to Birch Meadow 2 weeks ago to volunteer. Obviously, my daughter goes there. So I ended up participating in that, and Catherine was there as well. And, I just got to speaking with her about, composting in Reading, et cetera. I guess the big challenge with it is even if we could pay for every household to do composting, they can't keep up with the demand that would be put on by that amount of people wanting to do it. That doesn't dissuade us from doing it. It's just, I would like to see it happening more in Reading. It was super easy to just, I'd say 80% of the kids already knew what to do at that point, and it's only been going on for a couple weeks, I think, is the deal over there. So, yeah, it would be great if everybody could get on board. Black Earth can scale things up to meet the demand, and it does come back to money. And yes, it would reduce our trash contract in the future, because the tonnage is going to completely cripple us. So yes, tying that with that, and then Jackie and I will be interviewing 3 new people for VASC upcoming, so that's good. Obviously, we need another 40 or something at this point, some volunteers to fill everything up. So yes, definitely make your way to the town's website and find out what you can do.
Thanks, Chris. Jackie?
Sure, thank you. From RMLD, just a couple of updates. The RMLD Board of Commissioners approved new General Manager Greg Phipps's contract unanimously last night. It's a 3-year contract, so that's good news coming from that board. And then also just a reminder to RMLD customers to take the customer survey. It's currently on the home screen of rmld.com. RMLD has also been sending out or has been making phone calls to landlines, house phones, where listed for customers, and sending emails to customers. And this gives us customers an opportunity to input on things like rates, reliability, energy efficiency programs, and power supply. And then only other thing is just thank you to all the frontline workers, town employees, public safety who worked in extremely cold conditions this past weekend. Thank you for your service on those days and all of us. Thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. So a couple updates that I have. Last week, we had a public meeting about the senior center. All 5 select board members were in attendance. There was a lot of discussion about the needs of the senior community, and the immediacy of those needs was also a big topic. Fidel and I shared some of the proposals that we've been looking at. Some of the feedback was asking why the town hasn't acted sooner, given that the study in 2017 indicated some unfulfilled needs, and requests for more information sharing going forward to kind of continue that discussion. Following up on that, Recalc had a meeting last week. Today's Tuesday, yeah, last week. Very supportive of the efforts to move to a new senior center and support new programming now. The emphasis on the word now. They are creating a report summarizing the work done to date, including the UMass survey, and they'll be executing a communications plan to get the word out. They want to come and present to us and talk a little bit about, they feel that they've accomplished most of their original charter, and they would like the select board to either establish additional goals or see what we have in mind for them as a next activity, if anything. The other thing that they feel that they can work on is if the select board takes steps forward, they may be able to work on the feasibility study and have a role perhaps in a building committee if we form a building committee. The Council on Aging met last night. I unfortunately was not able to attend and really didn't get an update, so I don't want to share that. I have had some meetings with Council on Aging members where they highlighted the needs for dedicated space for seniors, no matter how we proceed with a new facility, as well as opportunities for intergenerational activities. But I think their push is just to make sure there are dedicated spaces for seniors that are included. On February 28th is going to be a joint meeting of Recalc and the Council on Aging to talk about the latest versions of some of the options that have been shared and some ideas that they may have. And again, depending on the select board actions over the next few meetings, that they may have more direction or not. At that point, we'll see. Just wanted to echo the comments in terms of finding new volunteers. We do still have an opening also on the Finance Committee, and would love to have some people that might want to be volunteering to do that. Great way to learn how the town runs. Great way to learn how the town runs. So with that, I will turn it to Fidel.
Thank you. I wanted to start off and just give a shout out to Chris Cole, who was in the crowd. He was instrumental, along with a few other staff members, in getting us the safe Routes to School grant program. So it's a program funded, designed, and constructed by Mass DOT with a maximum award of $1.5 million. That process will likely start in the summer with construction either in 2026 or 2027, and will focus on making traffic and pedestrian improvements on Oakland Road, and just to highlight that that is combined with the the grant that we received in the fall for Complete Streets, which is going to install sidewalks on Auburn Street and Parkview Road. We think that those sidewalks will be installed at some point this calendar year, depending on contracting. And finally, just highlighting that with the construction of phase one of the Birch Meadow master plan, that project will completely redo the parking lot at Imagination Station and the sidewalks around the parking lot, as well as that crosswalk to the Coolidge Middle School. So a lot of traffic improvements and pedestrian improvements around the Birch Meadow complex, which was a hot point, I believe, for some time. Just housekeeping items. Today we received the approval from the Attorney General's office for the 3 articles that were approved in November town meeting. There are some posting requirements, but it's great news. That means that we can get the ball rolling on those articles. We are up to 23 articles in town meeting in the packet, and later today I'll give a preview of the warrant, but we feel like it's in good shape at this point. And finally, the on the budget side, we are fully done on the town side and the school side, and we will be holding a public hearing at the next meeting of the select board on February 21st. I'll bring the budget book and we'll give a summary, essentially a preview of the budget before it is submitted to FinCom, and they'll go through their process in March. So quite a lot of things going on.
Great. And will there be a draft that residents can look at before that meeting so that they could take a look and see what's included?
Yeah, absolutely. So a draft. We are working hard to make sure that a draft goes out by the 15th of February. Certainly before the posting requirements of our meeting on the 21st, where it is going to be down to crunch time, of course. But that is our goal.
Awesome. Great. Board members, any questions? Jackie, anything your side? No? All good. Okay. Laura, election update, please.
Can I get Caitlin to put the presentation up?
Please, Caitlin.
Thank you, Caitlin. So before I start, I'd like to first apologize for the fact that this didn't go out until today, because I know you'd like to have everything ahead of time, but we're pretty busy with census and dog licenses and elections and all that sort of thing. So if we can go to the next slide. I just want to kind of briefly go over a little bit about we've already talked about the Votes Act of 2022 and in-person early voting and vote by mail and how it affects us with state elections. Now I want to talk a little bit about how it affects us with local elections. So with states and state elections and primaries, we're required to do in-person early voting for primaries for 1 week and for general elections for 2 weeks. And we're required to do vote by mail, early voting, vote by mail for all elections. So, Caitlin? So the Votes Act, as far as town elections, early voting in person is now referred to as we must opt in. So in other words, we do not have to do early voting in person unless we go through the process. However, we have to do early voting, vote by mail, unless we decide to go through the process to opt out. At this point, we could opt out. We would have to have a public hearing within 45 days of the election itself. We're getting pretty close to that. I think your next meeting is actually the 45th day. However, we've already sent out vote by mail applications and we've already processed over 500 of them. So at this point, I think vote by mail is pretty much a done deal. The in-person early voting, in order to opt in, it has to be recommended by the Board of Registrars. And then after the Board of Registrars decides to recommend it, then at that point, the Select Board would have to vote on that recommendation. Caitlin? So I just want to talk a little bit about the cost of early voting before we go into this a little bit more. So in-person early voting cost for September and November, as you can see, was pretty hefty. September was only for 1 week, November was for 2 weeks, and you notice the cost in November is a little bit less. And part of that's because, one, we got better at it. In September, it was thrown at us, we had to do something really quick, and we didn't realize what the numbers were gonna be, so we had a lot more staff in place. In November, we had time in between the two elections to be able to prepare ahead of time, and we did a lot of the prep before we even got into the early voting. So as soon as we got the ballots, we were able to start the work, so we didn't need as much extra help. Caitlin? So when you break that down, what the total cost was per ballot, so in September, we only had 237 ballots voted in in-person early voting, which brought out a cost of $28.70 per vote. In November, we had 1,053, which brought out a cost of $8.14 per vote. So we definitely lowered the cost. One, we lowered the cost, and two, we had a lot more ballots processing, so that's why that amount went down. But $8.14 is a pretty high price per ballot. Caitlin? So the Board of Registrars met on January 26th. There was a vote taken. There was a motion made to recommend in-person early voting during town hall hours only for March 27th through March 30th. The reasoning and the thinking behind that is that we can offer in-person early voting during that short period of time during the hours and not have extra staff. So therefore, there's not extra cost. If we don't do in-person early voting, the voters will still have the option of doing absentee. However, there's more paperwork to it for the voter. Just a little bit more of a hassle for the voter. So by doing this, it makes it a little bit easier on the voter and doesn't have extra costs onto the town. However, one of the things that I failed to mention to the Board of Registrars that I thought about afterwards, I'm not quite sure what my line of thinking was, is that Town Hall needs to be open to the public on March 25th for the last day of registered voter registration. We have to be open from 9 to 5. If we do just voter registration, I'm the only one that needs to be here, and that doesn't cost the town extra money. If we decide to do early voting on that day, there'll be extra costs for additional staffing, because I need to have at least 4 people here. So my recommendation at this point is the vote was 2-1 for this Board of Registrars. I don't vote unless I have to on the board, even though I am a voting member, I tend to stand back because I have a little bit more at stake. But I would recommend that we go ahead and do it on Saturday if you're willing to absorb that extra cost of the extra staffing on Saturday. If you decide to do so, I will need to go back to the Board of Registrars and get approval from them because it's on their recommendation. It's totally up to you on how you decide to go forward with that. Caitlin? Any questions? I went through that pretty quick, so.
Carl?
I know that example a few slides ago was state elections, so we have no data for local.
Correct.
Correct. So in a purely local election, which is coming up, like in the past, how many ballots are typically cast?
Well, that would have been a good thing for me to prepare with the total number percentage. Our percentage of turnout is generally between 30%, 20 to 30%. So that's a total of a couple thousand ballots. We've already received over 500 vote by mail applications. So that tells me that the turnout's gonna increase just by the vote by mail. In statewide, it's been, for state elections, it's been proven that the vote by mail increases turnout, but the early voting in person does not.
Yeah, that's kind of that was my leading question, the cost benefit here. I'm guessing it's gonna be the $30 range per ballot, not the $8 range for a purely local election.
That would be my guess too.
Where the turnout's gonna be much less.
Correct. It would be less than that because we know a lot more about what we're doing and we're in a position to be able to prepare more.
Right.
But I would say probably close to 20 per vote. That's if we do outside of additional hours of town hall hours. If it's done only during town hall hours, we can do it at the town hall window. And we can see typically with vote by mail, we have so many different types of voting now that with absentee, we set up 2 booths out in the hallway. If we do decide to do vote by mail, we will set up 4 booths out in the hallway.
In person.
In person, I'm sorry, yes.
No, it's confusing, you know.
Yeah, so we'll set up 4 booths and we'll only use town staff during normal hours. There won't be any extra salary out of it.
All right, so that's what's on the table right now. Those, aside from that Saturday,
Correct,
that couple of days in March is gonna be at the counter.
correct,
Okay.
with no additional cost.
Okay.
Yep, the Saturday itself, that would be, the additional cost, would be having, at least 3, possibly 4 staff here during the day.
We don't have to have voting that day.
We do not.
Right, okay. That's all I have right now.
Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Laura. I guess in the figures that you had up there as well, the $28, et cetera, that doesn't include actually the postage for any of the ballots, the papers that you send out in advance, et cetera. That's not calculated.
That was in-person early voting only.
Correct.
I didn't give any of the numbers for the cost for vote by mail. And that cost, the postage is gonna be reimbursed to us. The state auditor's office has certified us for the cost of in-person early voting, which now needs to go to the next step. And then, we've been guaranteed postage replacement, and the total of the 2 is, just over 20,000.
Yeah, I was gonna say that because I knew the postage would like trump all of the stuff that was in here essentially, so. I guess my other question, remark, et cetera, is I'm not sure about the Saturday scenario either. I think it would be, I would opt to not have any voting at all to bring down the cost, but since it's town staff only, I mean, I don't see the harm in doing that. But yeah, that's where I would be with that. The Saturday thing, I don't know. Just do mail-in if you have to come out on a weekend at that point, so.
Karen?
We don't usually vote on Saturdays, is my only thought, right?
When we do early voting, for state elections and primaries, we're required to be open 1 day on a weekend. It can be either Saturday or a Sunday.
Okay.
But we're not required in any way for local elections. So, for this last primary in the state, we were open 2 Saturdays for the general election and 1 Saturday for the primary.
That is incredibly convenient.
Turnout was
Okay, that's good to know.
very low. Very low.
We have evening hours and we have mail-in.
We have evening hours, we have mail-in, we have absentee, yeah.
Okay, because that's, just thinking back to the Council on Aging meeting, some of the comments about, I'd love to go and use the Pleasant Street Center, but I'm in Boston all day, so I can't, so just as long as we have a good mix of times for all different kind of commuting styles.
I think the vote by mail is the most popular way to vote, considering the number of applications that we've already received. So the towns are not, the state is required to send out vote by mail applications to all registered voters for this primary and for the general election. We are not required to send them out for local. However, I included it in with the census. And we've gotten quite, like I said, over 500 of them back so far.
Jackie, any questions or comments?
Thanks, Mark. No questions. Thank you, Laura, for this presentation. I'm inclined to agree with the recommendation of Laura and the board, but thank you.
Thanks. So just to clarify, you are looking for the board to say on the in-person to opt in or not, and that the regular days and or the Saturday. That's kind of what's in front of us. So I think what I'm hearing and kind of where I'm coming from also is having the in-person when town hall's open seems to make great sense and allow that as an option. We're doing all the mail-in activities. That sounds great. I think that seems like a reasonable approach.
So we asked Laura to come today to present the option and give you an opportunity to kind of think about it, right? And at the next meeting, we would be asking for a vote to
Good.
formalize this.
Just out of curiosity, if we did the Saturday and you had to have 3 or 4 people, how many dollars are we talking about? $1,200.
Off the top of my head, that would be about right. Yeah, so to be quite honest, it depends on the staffing that I bring in. If I bring in an election staff, it'll be a little bit cheaper than if I use office staff. But I would like to offer it to the office staff if they choose to, and then if they don't, then we'll go with election staff. That just would be my preference. I don't want to require it of them, but I'd like to have them offer to them, if so.
Okay, Chris?
How many people would you anticipate would come on Saturday? I know you can't, say with the utmost certainty, but are you thinking like 3 people or like 300?
So, judging from past experience with in-person early voting, in 2016, we had lines going out the door. I don't know if anybody was here, but on that Saturday, we had a line going from the conference room down to the town manager's office. You'd back around, came down this way and went out the door. However, I have not seen anything like that since because of the fact that we've had vote by mail. So long-winded answer, I don't think we're gonna have a whole lot of anything, maybe 20, 25. I can also tell you that on the last day to register to vote, I've been here, I've run almost 30 elections. On the last day to register to vote, I've done 2 registered voters on the last day. So it maybe 3, I might have forgotten one. So it's
In that 2016 thing back then, was that just one day because you only had it for that one day, or did you have the 5?
It was for 2 weeks.
Oh,
And it was on the weekend. It was the first time we ever did early voting, and it was the last day that the line was that bad. The days prior to that, the lines were bad, but they didn't go out the door. It was kind of cool, actually.
Any other questions? Jackie, anything? All set? All right, thanks, Laura.
All right, so I'll see you next
meeting.
2 weeks. Okay,
Good, thank
thank
you.
you very much for your time.
Thank you,
Thanks,
thanks for
Laura.
coming in. All right, next on our agenda, discuss and vote to approve new town manager employment contract. So, folks, if you will remember our last regularly scheduled meeting, the board and town staff did a review for the town manager, and the town manager received just great scores. I guess is the right way to put it. Very, very strong support for the activities going on. I think the board, we spoke and talked about how much we approve of the job he's doing and encouraged to keep it going. At the same time, when we hired Fidel, we were all taking a little bit of a risk, I think. Fidel coming to Reading, and Reading choosing someone who had a little bit less experience, but a lot of enthusiasm and a lot of things that everybody on the board really, really desired. And I think that has all paid off really, really nicely. As we did the review for Fidel, we also realized that compensation we were offering to him was a bit below kind of par, but below the average, below what similar communities are offering. And one of the things the board wanted to do was to signal very clearly our approval for the work that's being done and to be paying a fair salary. The town just went through and we just completed 6 months or so ago, whenever it was done, we did a pay and class study. And the purpose of that was to make sure that we're paying people appropriately for the work that they're doing, not at the highest percentile, but at a good clip, something that's reasonable, that makes sense for this community. It's responsible, and it also is designed to make sure that people who are doing a great job are staying here. So the board felt that it would be important to review Fidel's contract for that reason and to make some adjustments. In our packet tonight actually is a new contract. So rather than kind of modifying the existing contract, of which we're 1 year into, it was the board's desire, and we haven't voted on it yet, but we'll do that in a few minutes. It was the board's desire to create a new 3-year contract. We're not able to go longer than 3, although it was the desire of certain members, myself included perhaps, to go longer, but 3 is the max that we're allowed to do. So that's what we set it up for. It brings his salary more consistent with other town managers. We also know that there are changes going on in town managers in different communities, and we wanted to make it clear to Fidel and to the community that we want Fidel to be here, not in those other communities. So we put together a new 3-year arrangement based on that. It involves a substantial increase in salary, again, back to more consistent levels with other communities. And I think that we as a board have discussed this a little bit in executive session. Now we get to discuss it a little bit in open session. And I asked my fellow board members if they'd like to comment. Karen.
Sure, very well said, Mark. I agree with all the points he made, and I would also like to add that because I had the opportunity to go to the Mass Municipal Association conference, I was able to speak with our consultant from, was it Paradigm Associates? Bernie.
Yeah, Bernie.
So I was able to talk to him about, you know, with the last year's worth of inflation, you know, what would we be looking at for a new town manager? And this is the ballpark we're in, so it was good to get that outside confirmation that we were just looking to level set and be fair and reasonable and very appreciative of all the hard work.
Thanks. Jackie?
Sure, yeah, I'm happy that we have a good showing of commitment both on the part of Fidel and his efforts and his incredibly aggressive and active pace of activity in our town during his first year with us, and that we can reflect that back in terms of the town's commitment to Fidel with this new contract for a new 3-year term. I support it. I know later tonight we'll talk a bit about goals and objectives for next year. It's an especially important time for the town given a lot of the bigger projects coming up. But I'm really thrilled that we were able to come to this, looks like come to this agreement, and look forward to more great things. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie. Kyle?
Yeah, thank you. I'll echo Mark's comments and look forward to 3 more years.
Awesome. Chris?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, for me, I guess not only, I guess I'll put it this way, for the board to be in fully agreement on something unanimously, is good to see and refreshing at times. So for all of us to be, in that much of an agreement, and then Fidel obviously wanting to stay here and continue with Reading and just move things forward like he has been. I mean, it's just good all around. I don't see any negative on any of that. So no, I've said it before, I've said it again, Fidel's everywhere. He's here more than Chelsea. And I mean, I don't know what else we could really ask. So keep up the good work. and then I also brought you some more Red Bull again.
It's kind of a small.
Listen, my house flooded, so I didn't have the money to get you the 24-pack this time around. But yeah, I think I won't be getting you another one for 3 years, so we'll see how it goes.
And with that, do you have a motion?
I do. Move to approve the new town manager employment contract as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Let's take a vote. We will take a roll call vote on this. So I'll start. Jackie,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Carlo,
Yes.
and Mark, yes. So with that, I have in hand the contract. Why don't we sign it? And Del, this is the contract you handed me, so.
That's the right one.
Check the numbers.
Yeah, right.
I did check one.
A little whiteout. A little whiteout. Yeah.
When we sign it, we'll ask Fidel to sign it, and
Yeah, it's in the
I'm
general
remiss, I was supposed to bring some things and I didn't, so I apologize, but we were gonna have a virtual celebration. No champagne.
You can have one of these Red Bull.
Share the Red Bulls.
Yeah, 4 in there.
I took out this, which is not a pen.
Oh, here, you can use mine if you want.
Thank you. I think I'm good, let's just make sure this isn't red. It's not.
Is Reading not valid? I'll take that in there.
Thank you. Jackie, virtual signature.
Thank you very much.
So with this contract, we be wed. Thank you, and we look forward to lots more great stuff, so.
A lot of Red Bull.
All right, let us go to page 2. So it's past 7:45, so let's do the public hearing on traffic improvements. Chris, can I ask you to read the notice?
Yes. To the inhabitants of the town of Reading, please take notice that the select board of the town of Reading will hold a public hearing on February 7th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the select board meeting room at Town Hall, 16 Lowell Street, Reading, Mass. Or also available remotely on Zoom to act on proposed changes to the following traffic and parking regulations. Amendment number 2023-1, repeal the installation and maintenance of official stop signs is authorized on Hopkins Street and the intersection with Main Street for both eastbound and westbound drivers. Amendment number 2023-2, repeal no vehicle traveling eastbound on Hopkins Street shall make a left turn onto Main Street. Amendment 2023-3, repeal eastbound and westbound drivers on Hopkins Street shall make a right turn only onto Main Street. A copy of the proposed documents regarding this topic will be in the select board packet or on the website at www.readingma.gov. All interested parties are invited to attend the hearing in person or remotely via Zoom, or may submit their comments in writing or by email prior to 6 p.m. on February 7, 2023 to townmanager@ci.reading.ma.us by order of Fidel Maltez, town manager.
Thank you very much. We have Safety Officer Scouten in the audience. Can you please come join us up here and share a little bit of information?
Stop signs, which were already removed, and the right turn only, which doesn't exist anymore due to the new traffic lights. And that's basically it.
Is it trap-based in terms of if you're coming down Hopkins to get the light to change? Is it based on a trap? Is it a timer or?
The sensors,
The sensors.
yeah, so it's all censored now, it's all brand new.
So know somebody's there.
Mass DOT, all new, brand new traffic lights. They're active now, so once they're activated, the stop signs.
Camera there?
I'm sorry?
I believe that there's a camera. Oh, no. So
So it detects vehicles.
Yeah, it's actually, it's sensors, camera sensors. It's all new, state of the art. Complete upgrade to the intersection itself. It's been going on in years of studies, you know, with the road diet and everything. They decided to upgrade the traffic lights. So we're looking to just redact the stop signs stepping off of Hopkins Street, both sides, east and westbound, and then the right turn onlys are gone as well, 2 of the lights. So,
Awesome. Are there public comments? Anyone like to speak on this?
enjoying the stoplight? Great.
Anyone on Zoom that would like to speak?
Don't see anyone.
Folks, fair warning, are there other members on Zoom right now? Other members of the community on Zoom? Just, I don't need to know who they are, just that there are.
George?
Yes.
Actually, that's the other one.
Okay, great, so no one wants to speak. Okay, we have a motion to close the hearing, please.
Move to close the hearing regarding the traffic improvements.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? Let's take a vote. We'll go by roll call. Jackie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
Mark, yes. Okay, so the public hearing is closed. Board members, any questions or comments for Officer Scout?
For me, easy peasy.
Sounds good.
Jackie, anything your side?
No.
Awesome. Do you have a motion?
Yep, I have 3 separate ones.
Three
So
separate.
move to approve Safety Amendment 2023-1.
Should we,
I can do all 3.
yeah, I think we do all 3, unless somebody has an
Uh,
objection. No, let's do all 3.
And 2023-2, as well as 2023-3.
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any discussion? Jackie, anything your side?
No.
All right, let us take the vote then. Jackie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
Mark, yes. Thank you. All set. Done. Yes,
Early
yes is the
night.
word.
Appreciate your time.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, it is trash talk time. Chris, you gonna start out?
Yes, sir.
Great, thank you. Yeah, props are good.
Can you pull up the PowerPoint, Caitlin? Thank you. Thank you.
So thanks to the board for having us on the agenda tonight. So as you know, we are constantly seeking ways of improving the rubbish recycling collection efforts here in town. And we wanted to come before you tonight to discuss the benefits of the town supplying rubbish recycling carts for town curbside collection, as well as an initiative of what this would look like for the town. So the first slide here gives you an idea of what the carts we're proposing might look like curbside. And over there to my right is a sample of one of the carts as well. Okay, next slide, please. Now, before we go into specifics of what is being proposed, you're probably wondering, why do we need to address the idea of purchasing carts right now anyway? And the answer is, we have to plan for the future because the train is coming. Now, I'll go into more detail on these points throughout the presentation, but to summarize briefly, our rubbish disposal contract with Covanta expires in June of 2025, and the new contract prices are expected to be significantly higher. The rubbish and recycling collection contract with Republic expires only 1 year later in June of 2026, and those contract prices are expected to be significantly higher as well. So this is why purchasing new carts now would lessen the financial impact on the town when the new collection contract is bid in 2026, and we'll prepare the town for possible automated rubbish and recycling collection at that time if the board chooses to go down that route. Carts would help with rodent issues around town, rainfall issues, litter on windy days, and improve the general aesthetics of the town on collection days, all of which I will explain further in a few moments. Next slide, Caitlin. Okay, so the rubbish disposal contract with Covanta, as I just said, we're in the middle of a 5-year contract with them right now, and that is set to expire on June 30th of 2025. The current tipping fee we're paying is $95.48 per ton. Next year's tipping fee as of July 1st will increase by 3%, and that fee will go up to $98.35 per ton. And the town currently disposes of about 7,000 tons of rubbish per year. With the collection contract with Republic for rubbish and recycling. So JRM was purchased by Republic Services, as you recall, back in spring, in May. We are currently in the middle of a 10-year contract with them, which only expires 1 year later after the disposal contract on June 30th of 2026. The contract terms did not change, so all contract requirements remain in place as before. So the town's current contractual cost is $1,146,975. And that cost will increase by 3% each year for the duration of the contract, resulting at a cost of $1,181,384 in FY24. And as I said, both of these contracts are expected to increase significantly when they both have to be rebid. Next slide, Caitlin, please. And then residents are also able to subscribe, as we heard earlier, to Black Earth Compost for the curbside food scrap collection. So there are currently 423 subscribers in town. The estimated tonnage collected by Black Earth in 2022 was 111 tons, which translates to about 4.3 gallons per household per week on average. The current weekly collection pricing plan is $13.99 monthly or $74.99 every 6 months. The current bi-weekly collection pricing plan is $10.99 monthly or $55.99 every 6 months. And all new residential subscribers receive a 13-gallon compost bin and their first roll of 13-gallon bags, compliments of the town. Next slide, Caitlin, please. So who does the town provide rubbish and recycling services to? So there are 6,902 1, 2, and 3 family residential dwellings, 457 1, 2, and 3 unit apartment and condominium dwellings, 8 school buildings, and 7 municipal buildings. And altogether then, 74% of the town's total collection is for the 1, 2, and 3 family residential and 1, 2, and 3 unit apartment and condominium dwellings. School buildings account for about 18% of that total collection, and municipal buildings make up the remaining 8%. Next slide, Caitlin, please. So you're probably asking, what are the benefits of using carts? Carts will help mitigate rodent issues by supplying residents with covered containers for their rubbish and recycling, therefore eliminating a possible food source. Rainfall issues. One of the problems we have now when it rains concerns households that don't have a lid on their rubbish container. The barrel fills up with rainwater, and then when the truck comes to empty the barrel, all of that rainwater gets emptied into the back of the truck, causing foul-smelling, rubbish-infused water to spill out all over the roads when the truck drives around the neighborhood. So carts will also prevent any loose rubbish or recycling from blowing around neighborhoods on windy days. Providing carts to households of a uniform appearance will improve the aesthetics of the town on collection days and also make it easier for the rubbish and recycling hauler to better differentiate and identify rubbish and recycling contents. This will be accomplished with the recycling carts by having different colored lids on the, than the rubbish carts, for example. And lastly, the carts would be purchased by the town and be the property of the town, providing flexibility when the time comes to change collection vendors, and the carts would already be in place. Next slide, Caitlin, please. So you're probably asking yourselves, what are our other peer communities doing as it relates to this? So we reached out to and surveyed our peer communities. For those communities that have already gone to automated collection, households were given one 64-gallon rubbish cart. They were also given one 64-gallon recycling cart if the recycling was collected weekly, or one 96-gallon cart if the recycling was collected bi-weekly. For those households in which one 64-gallon rubbish cart was not sufficient for their weekly disposal needs, they were given the option of either leasing a second cart annually, or they could purchase overflow bags to be placed alongside their cart. When asked how they manage bulk item disposal, their contract allows for one bulk item per week, as Reading currently does. Or if they have a large quantity of bulk items to dispose of, they can contact their rubbish hauler and pay for a separate pickup. Next slide, please. So what would residents have for options who have more volume than the one rubbish or recycling cart could hold? Of which would be a decision that this board would have to make on what options should be pursued. One option is the use of overflow bags, which I have right here. So these would be a preferred option, as they would minimize administrative involvement by the town. Residents could purchase 30-gallon overflow bags to be placed alongside their rubbish cart. The overflow bags could be purchased at local grocery and convenience stores, of which the locations would be determined by the town. Retail costs to the resident would be in the range of $2 to $3 per bag, probably closer to the $2 end. Most communities typically offer a roll of, say, like 5 bags for $10. The actual purchase price by the town, however, would be around 38 cents per bag. Waste Zero would be the vendor and would monitor all store inventory. The town would only deal with Waste Zero and not any of the local stores. So the difference you see in the retail cost between the town's purchase price would account for the town's disposal costs and any administrative costs for Waste Zero in working with the local stores. These bags are made of heavy-duty plastic, 1.5 millimeter thick, and come colored with the town seal on them to distinguish from a regular trash bag. So another preferred option is for residents, as we keep saying, to subscribe to the Black Earth Compost curbside collection program to eliminate the food scraps from their rubbish stream and reduce the weekly curbside rubbish volume. So one more option would be to allow households the option of leasing an extra cart, although this option is less desirable as it does create logistical challenges for town staff in finding locations to store these additional carts and then delivering them to the household, as well as logistics on how we would manage the annual payments. Each household could obtain one additional 64-gallon rubbish cart for an annual charge, or an extra 64-gallon recycling cart at no additional charge. Next slide, please, Caitlin. So in anticipation of what might be asked, I put together some anticipated questions which many of you may be wondering about. So how many carts would each household receive under this proposal? So each household would receive one 64-gallon rubbish cart and one 64-gallon recycling cart, which is the size you see right over there to my right. How many carts will the town need to purchase? We'd have to purchase approximately 7,400 rubbish carts and 7,800 recycling carts. How much will this cost and how will it be funded? So assuming the board would like to pursue this and have town meeting, have it be addressed by town meeting, April town meeting would be asked to approve $900,000 to purchase carts. Now, you're also probably asking, well, have any grant opportunities been explored to fund this? And the answer is yes. 2 grant opportunities have been found for funding recycling carts only. I have not found any grants for funding rubbish carts as of yet. There is a Mass DEP grant for recycling carts. However, the town is actually not eligible for that because in order to be eligible for that, the weekly household rubbish allowance can only be a maximum of 35 gallons, and at the moment, Reading is far from that. The one grant we will be applying for is the Recycling Partnership Grant. So that has a maximum of allotment of $750,000 and grants gets grant funding for purchasing recycling carts and implementing recycling education outreach efforts. Recycling Partnership is a national nonprofit organization. And if awarded, any funding, though, may not be received for up to 6 months after applying. So any funds received in that grant will be supplanted from the $900,000 that we might receive at town meeting. Next slide, Kelly, please. So what would be the benefit of switching to carts now? So as I mentioned earlier, having carts in place now would ensure a smooth transition if the town decided to switch to automated collection when the current rubbish and recycling contract expires in June of 2026, and would add that extra flexibility in that the carts would not be tied to a change in collection contracts. If funding is approved, when could residents expect to see their carts? So funding, if approved at town meeting, would not be available until July. And there's at least a 6 to 8 week lead time on the carts, so you'd be looking at possible delivery sometime in the fall of 2023. Is Republic Services on board if the town were to switch to carts right now, given that we're in the middle of a current contract with them? And the answer is yes. Fidel reached out to a regional manager with Republic, and they are definitely on board. They only see this as an improvement over our current process and have no concerns at all over a transition like that. How would the cart program be rolled out? So the vendor would perform the initial delivery of the rubbish and recycling carts to each household, and then the Department of Public Works would perform maintenance and deliverables as needed on those carts. And from the proposal we received so far, carts range anywhere from a 10 to 12 year warranty. Next slide, Ken, please. So the million dollar question. So why would the town only provide one 64-gallon rubbish cart to each household when the current rubbish limit is 120 gallons? So from surveying Reading's peer communities, providing one 64-gallon rubbish cart per household would align Reading with what our other peer communities are already doing. And as you will see on the next slide, data actually shows that the average amount of rubbish generated by a single household in Reading is less than 64 gallons per week. And then, as we've already briefly mentioned before, what options exist if a resident has more than 64 gallons of rubbish per week? Residents could purchase 30-gallon overflow bags to be placed with their rubbish cart. They could subscribe to the Black Earth Compost curbside collection program to eliminate the food scraps from their rubbish stream. And each household could obtain one additional rubbish, 64-gallon rubbish cart for an annual charge, or possibly an extra recycled cart 64-gallon could be obtained for no additional charge. Next slide, Kevin, please. So this is the data I was just talking about. So what you see here now is a comparison of the average weekly household rubbish and recycling volumes for the past 4 calendar years. So these volumes were calculated based on the total tonnage collected each week for both rubbish and recycling, which were then broken down by the number of households serviced. So the blue bars represent household rubbish volumes, and the orange bars represent the household rubbish, household recycling volumes. And as you can see, even in calendar year 2020, during the height of the pandemic, when most people were home and had nothing better to do than clean out their basements and attics, the average weekly household rubbish volume was still less than 64 gallons per week, at 63.5 gallons, you can see there. Then by last year, in 2022, the rubbish volume stabilized to the level they were at pre-pandemic levels, which is at about 57.3 gallons. You can also see that recycling volumes would not be an issue, as the average over the past 4 years was only 23.5 gallons per household. Next slide, Kate, please. So what are the pros and cons of, say, an overflow bag versus an extra cart? So a pro is that bags are more economical when you might only have extra rubbish periodically, say after a party you might have at your house on the weekend or around the holidays, etc. Another pro, bags offer the least administrative alternative for the town. A pro on the carts is an extra cart gives the convenience of already having it on hand when it's needed. Con, an extra cart would require additional storage for the household. Another con on the carts is that allowing an extra cart creates logistical challenges for town staff, since the town would now be responsible for storing and distributing these extra carts, as well as managing the resident payment options. So how will residents dispose of bulk items? So residents would still be allowed to place their one bulk item curbside per week with their rubbish. You know, Reading is still under the same contract that we have been for rubbish and recycling collection. That does not expire, as I said, until June of 2026. And just as a reminder, a bulk item is defined as a piece of furniture, toilet, fiberglass tub, grill with no tank attached, lawnmower, countertop, microwave, etc. None of these are to exceed, no bulk items to exceed over 60 pounds in weight. And then lastly, what can residents do with their old rubbish and recycling containers? So the old red recycling bins make great storage containers make great storage containers. Any plastic containers can be recycled at a rigid plastic collection event. And if you have any metal containers, they can definitely be recycled through the curbside scrap metal collection that is held annually. And last slide, Kate, please. So those are all the questions that I have proposed. Are there any additional questions?
Board members, questions? Carlo?
Yeah, if you could just maybe, I know it's not time for us to renew, but if you could share what you've learned on other communities that are going through contract negotiations and what their proposed increases are. You know, you said that they're definitely going to go up, and I think we need to be prepared on what other towns are dealing with right now and what our future looks like.
Sure. Yeah, well, just actually in the past few weeks, we learned that I guess Newburyport right now is having talks about the disposal contract. Thank you. And those costs were actually 50% higher than what they were seeing in their current, and that was just for a one-year contract, I believe. And then for the collection contracts, you know, when we were having some issues with Republic back in the fall, you know, we were just getting some pricing, you know, not knowing what was going to happen, if, you know, we might have to do something, and the pricing we were seeing, some of it was actually coming back almost double, you know, what we're currently paying now. So we're expecting significant increases, so that's why we're trying to do this to, you know, maybe lean towards the automated collection, because where that would reduce the amount of staff, you know, required to collect it, you know, while the cost of everything else might go up, you know, that might minimize it by having less staff on the actual truck, and then also anything that we can do to reduce the the amount of rubbish, that we dispose of would greatly reduce on the amount that we have to pay at Covanta each year for disposal.
And would you agree that Bob had the foresight, and probably other town managers, 7 years ago to negotiate a 10-year contract, that those will no longer exist?
Yeah, I mean, given the volatility of the market right now, I mean, you might get a 5-year contract. I mean, I could not see you getting another 10-year contract. Just, we're getting a good deal right now.
Correct, yeah, thank you, and that was a big concern going forward.
Jackie, anything?
Yeah, thanks, Mark. A few questions. I know some of this might not be answerable at the moment, but do you have a sense of how much less of an increase we might be looking at in a new contract if we went with the with these cards?
So as Chris said, back in October, we met with 5 haulers, right? I mean, and it was basically all of those that would answer the phone call, and the majority of them said essentially that they were not taking new customers unless they were automated, and so Casella being a big one, Waste Management another one. So essentially what they offered us at the time was an interim price, right? As we rolled out carts, and a second price after carts were rolled out. The difference was about $50,000 per month from a fully manual operation to a fully automated operation. So it is not only an increase in cost. I've got the feeling that 3 years down the line, anyone that is going to take us that is not Republic Services, and even Republic Services with a new contract, is going to require that we are fully automated.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I think in order to assess this, we need some more detail about the fact that not automating might eliminate us from exploring contracts with certain vendors in what sounds like it's a pretty concentrated market, one where there's maybe 4 or 5 vendors, not 10 or 20. I guess also I'd be curious. And thank you to Chris and Jane for the presentations and the chance to discuss this individually. I wonder, both for kind of high volume users and the public comment at the beginning of tonight's meeting, smaller residences or those units that currently have much less or much smaller than a 64-gallon cart. I'd be curious to know kind of what the best estimate is of kind of those high and low volume users, because I think for those folks it's a bit of a special case on both sides, and I think generally just having a better understanding on the finances and the availability of contractual options when we go to either renew contracts or negotiate new ones with vendors. I think we as a select board, and then if it gets to town meeting will need to have that information to assess whether this is a good deal financially. I understand that there are sustainability benefits to this and behavioral changes in terms of encouraging more recycling and composting, and that's all well and good, but I think for the average resident, even one who is interested in and it is good at recycling, which I see just a lot of our neighbors. Certainly they're always out with recycling, large recycling amounts every week. We need to have more detail on those numbers and more detail on what this choice means, both for how much we'll pay for these contracts when we renew them, and also our ability to find vendors.
Thanks,
And
Jen.
that's all.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question?
George, let the board go first, please, and then we'll open it. Karen?
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. And I know I missed a presentation earlier, and I'm really excited to see Black Earth Compost up there. And again, thank you to the Reading Composters for coming tonight, and Jane as well. I mean, to get this far in 2 years during a pandemic, from like, oh, hey, maybe we'll try this too. I'm gonna call this mainstream in our community now, and so that's fabulous. So thank you. And then I did a quick. I have like the worst rubbish barrels ever. I don't have no covers. They're old. But I was looking at Home Depot, and so you can buy a cart for $270. They're not inexpensive. And so what I was wondering is that I've heard some resident comments that they may have made investments in these carts, and I'm wondering if we could consider a path for them. I don't know if they could use the carts they have or something. I didn't realize it was such an investment for the folks that did go ahead and make these cart investments already. But I like a lot of the pros, and we have been hearing from, I had been hearing from Bob that our rubbish collection options were greatly shrinking and going away. So really not surprised at some of the results you're coming back when you speak to the market.
Chris?
Thanks, Mark. And thanks, Chris and Jane, for the presentation last week. After I left, I was obviously fixated on trash and recycling and whatnot. So then just on my ride home, just seeing the amount of people that actually didn't have covers on barrels. And then I never really thought of the point where the water gets in, overflows, everything stinks, there's rats. People complain about this all the time, yet that problem exists. So it would be good to standardize things like that. I know I checked the weight on the 64-gallon thing over there is actually 30 pounds, which is worse than the 25 that you mentioned. So I don't know what other communities are doing for seniors, et cetera, that would have to do that times two, because the recycling is going to be the identical one. So I guess it would be worth seeing how they handle that. I know there's probably 32-gallon things. I don't know if the trucks are equipped to do that. Maybe it's only the latch thing in the front, that metal bar, that does the difference. But I've had that identical one since I moved to Reading for the most part. And it's just the lid. The raccoons will eat the thing. But other than that, it's going to last pretty much forever. And the 64-gallon ones are like $90 at Home Depot. So I guess for me, I would be looking at getting more than one in my household, even though, I make sure I recycle everything humanly possible. It's still just a never-ending battle with stuff coming in and coming out. So, and my other question, is how I mentioned the survey thing, if we could end up doing that to see about what residents would end up doing if they did want to sign on to get to recycle or to trash containers. Just see what the feedback comes from that. If there's only 30 people that want it, then you're going to store 30 things potentially. But if 10,000 people come back and say they want it, then you're going to be stacking them at the Burbank Ice Arena or something like that. So, but no, thank you. It's good to see that we're ahead of this because, who knows where the contracts are going to be in the future other than up, which is unfortunately the way everything goes. So, thank you much.
Thanks, Chris. So I guess what strikes me is that this is part of the solution only. The other part is we need to figure out how to get less trash, right? Because the cost is horrendous. So limiting the amount of dumping that we can do, although maybe feeling a little bit harsh to some, is kind of the direction we still have to go in. And I think composting is a piece in terms of what's going on, and there are plenty of families, myself included, that don't do it yet and need to. And then figure out how do we get it down to these levels. What was really interesting is that I think we always win recycling awards, right? For the most recycling in Massachusetts or whatever. And we're only at 20 or so gallons, 25 gallons?
Yeah, we actually reached out to our contact at Mass DEP that we work with for recycling. And the numbers that the data they came back with actually does have Reading at near the top of the spectrum for percentage recycled. At about 28% of the total tonnage. But when you look at the communities that, they just gave us probably about 38 communities from around Massachusetts. And there's actually some communities towards the, for the smaller rubbish volumes, like your city of Newton, Somerville, I believe, and Belmont, they're all around like 45 gallons per week.
For recycling.
For trash.
Trash.
Yeah. That's pretty exceptional. So I think part of what would be helpful also is to understand for other communities that have just implemented this or have done it for a while. I think what you said is most of them find that it's better to have some bags for overflow rather than leasing second carts. How does that work? I mean, maybe we can hear from some town managers, what's the feedback from the communities? I'm sure for some folks it's a big burden to start. Does it get better? How does that go? There'll be outliers. I was impressed, I was struck almost by the size of this. I looked at it and it's huge, it's immense. From a storage issue, which is one concern, but it just seems like it's got massive capacity.
Yeah.
And I've been, over the last few weeks, I've been looking at my neighbors who have lots of young kids just to see how much trash is going out. And it's multiple barrels, but they're little barrels compared to this. This feels like it's double. So I think that's part of what people need to kind of think about, is to understand we need to reduce somehow. The costs are horrendous. If it's going up 100%. What do we say? What's the total per year we're spending on trash recycling right now?
Trash recycling is around 1.1 million.
And the tipping after that?
Yeah.
So it's like $2 million a year total? So it's $2 million a year. So if that goes up to $4 million a year, that's a problem. That's a big.
It's coming.
Yeah, but if we can have less volume,
Yeah, I
then we can
agree.
control it
I
a little bit better. So I think part of this has got to be, how do we educate folks on, instead of the shock of, wow, I can't get down to one, how big this is, what options you've got, how to think about focusing on creating less trash somehow. And we can also push back a little bit. So, this is not happening just in Reading. So there's a lot of pushback on packaging companies too, to make things more friendly. So the world is also changing, not just us. Karen?
Could I ask one more question? So the barrel Chris was talking about, that's $100 is the 32-gallon bin. But to your point, I'm a little worried about how two of those are gonna fit in my garage. Is it possible, they're shaped the same, they have the same handle? Would it be possible for two sizes of barrels?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's going to be hard is doing a massive rollout, right? Where we make everybody happy, right? So
Yep.
so I think if we can get 90% of the town happy, right? Then at that point we can deal with the outliers, because what's going to happen is we're going to have residents like Chris Haley who says this is too small. Right, and I need two of these, right? So it's hard to offer a menu, if you will, right? Of like combo A to the car vendor does offer a 32-gallon, right? But again, it's one more stock item that we have to stock, that we have to handle, and what we have heard from the communities is that they ended up handing it out, and it was too small for people, and they ended up taking it back, and now DPW storing it in the back or something, or has dumped it. So the what we're hoping is to do a rollout that makes most of the town happy, right? And once the rollout is complete, if we have a 10 homes that we've got to handle individually, right? Or on the flip side, we have 100 homes that want a second cart, you know, then we can handle that individually. I think what you know, we're trying to do something that makes sense for as much of the town as possible.
I got 48 gallon too.
Exactly.
No, just getting to your point though, we've gotta try to, if we,
Less.
that's super generous. I will never fill that. Once in 3 years, I would fill that, but I understand. Okay, we have a variety we have to deal with.
Go ahead, Chris.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, so since I have the same one, it's typically 3 bags of trash is what fits in there, the black, you know, 30-something gallon ones that you just get at Staples and whatnot. So it might look as if it can just swallow trash on a consistent basis. You know, with kids, maybe that's a different story, at least for me anyway. But yes, on my trip around Reading, seeing everyone with uncovered barrels, et cetera, I did see a ton of like, you know, 3-4 barrels at people's houses, extra trash bags on the ground. That's why I don't like the purple bag thing. We just don't accomplish animals still getting into it, or, you know, that kind of thing. I know it's not going to be as much, and we hope that nobody buys the bags and uses 30 gallons a year, but I don't think that that's going to be the case in the beginning. As time goes on, sure. But yeah, that is a Toter 64 gallon at Home Depot for $94.97. Or if you're very shopper friendly.
Mine says $279.
Well, you're going to the wrong Home Depot,
I'm
Karen.
lucky with that,
This
so
one's at
why?
Reading 9, they got 10
Is
in
this like
stock.
the
You can
airlines?
get some tomorrow. Or if you want to save $15, you can go to
Well,
Walmart
give
and
me
get
your
it for
laptop, I'll
$80
order it from
instead.
your laptop then, cause
$80
mine's
instead at
$270.
Walmart, so.
For the record, when we buy in bulk, they're about $50
See?
for us in the town.
Okay.
So Walmart's
Sold.
making
Cheaper than
30
Walmart and Costco and all the others.
Just a question, so are there other communities that are kind of considering this at the same time frame? And if we were to, Reading wouldn't order twice as many, but if we were 2 communities, does the price change or does it drop $1?
No, it's this is purchased through a state contract that
Got it, so it's fixed.
is pre-negotiated by DEP, and it's the same contract that we all ordered from.
Got it. Kyle?
Quick question, I think I asked this at the private meeting. The warranty on the barrel and the lid. Is the lid separate warranty, given the rodent issues I've heard eating the lids?
The warranties were 10 to 12 years, and it was pretty standard warranty that if there's any you know, physical harm caused to it, you know, that's out of the norm, then it might not be covered. But for the most part, anything else like that would be covered. And Fidel said he's worked with those trash card vendors in the past, and they're pretty good to work with on things like that.
Yeah, the one vendor said that they'll last 25 years, but the warranty is 12 years. But what he said, what gets damaged is the lid and the wheels. And essentially, what you do is you pop them. You basically pop it and you put a new one. So the idea is that we would stock it in DPW, and then it would be a phone call to the yard, and we would make a trip.
So no cost to the taxpayer in that 10 to 12 year warranty period.
I think we would, do the first one for free, and then the second one, I'd be like,
Okay.
hey, what's going on, right? I mean, but we would obviously work with the residents as long as it's reasonable.
Okay. Normal wear and tear is
Normal wear and tear.
All right.
George, did you have a question?
George? We stepped away.
No. There you go.
Sorry, I had to do my unmute here. I guess a few comments. One is, Fidel, congratulations on what you did last fall when we had that crisis with Republic. Whatever tricks you did were successful, and thank you. It was frustrating for a while. Secondly, on the handle bit, and I think Jackie brought up the fact of the seniors and, two-person homes and whatnot, may not ever fill the 64 gallon. I think possibly at times we could, there's two of us, but a 64 gallon recycling, and yes, we do recycle everything, but we, at most, we will fill, except at certain times of the year, we'll fill just two of the red containers. Two of those red containers will fit into a 30-gallon container. So I think that may be overkill. I mean, you have your statistics, and I don't remember what they were on in terms of the recycling. But the recycling 64-gallon, I think, is huge. So I would do some thinking about that, and that leads up, again, to Jackie's comment that, yes, Adele, I agree, and Chris, that the 64-gallon covers all bases, and the trucks probably are not equipped to be able to handle 32-gallon. But I would suggest start putting this on the table, even in the spirit of Doug's comment about we all have to recycle more and have less throwaway trash. But 32-gallon for the recycling is still huge if you're a religious recycler like we are. And lastly, a comment I would say is that when there's a bad snow day and yet they're still having pickup, getting that barrel to stand firmly on any part along the curbside can be a challenge. And I know in those cases, we will probably take, in order to avoid the rodents that were referred to, we will probably take a hefty bag, fill it, and then put it inside the special bag to be picked up. So those are my comments.
Thanks, Rich. Anyone else in the audience with a question or comment?
Is it open for our discussion also?
I'm opening it for your discussion. Board members, is that okay?
Of course.
Your name's Chris?
Yes.
Okay. I think.
Could you come to the podium?
Yeah, please. Can we ask you to come to the podium, and that way people on TV can hear you and see you?
Thank you.
Chris, I believe that you said when it was
Can you speak up here, please?
restated, sorry, had to do with the amount of recycling people do, and so you said it was approximately 25 gallons, 30 gallons, that's what this person just said too. Okay, so one of the questions is, yes, indeed, it would seem that 64 gallons is really over capacity for what is needed. And I understand the reason for wanting to have a uniform, I understand having the automated, all that. But I'm back to my original statement that for seniors, and this is what the other person was saying, people who have medical issues, mobility issues, bringing those carts up and down, for a lot of us, over capacity, it'll just be half empty, is really asking a lot of us. I think you said it's 30 pounds. I would not be able to, if it's filled up with even 10 or 12 pounds, I would find that very, very hard to maneuver down my driveway and back up the driveway. I'd have to hire somebody to come in. But I do know that other towns with automation have used 35-gallon bins, which seem to go into the whole automated process also. So I would like that to be a consideration, a strong consideration, not just, well, there might be 10 houses that we'd have to deal with. I have a feeling there could be more than 10 from some of the comments. So I'd like that, I'm asking if that could be something put on the table early on. A couple of people have mentioned it, so thank you very much.
Thank you. So, board members, any other questions or comments? Chris?
I guess I just have a follow-up to that. I think it's in, like the senior circuit breaker in town, like 230 residents, I think, applied for that and got it or something. I think it would be worth at least polling them just to see how they would feel about the 30-pound kind of scenario plus weight, all that kind of stuff. I know that we'd be able to get 32-gallon containers for cheaper than the 64, and it logistically, I don't think you would be dealing with 10,000 households looking for smaller ones. If we mainly opened it up just for, senior citizens or people that can't, medically take care of it, that they can reach out to town hall and get, removed from the list of the 10,000 houses that are getting the normal ones and to get the smaller ones. And then the cost that we're saving for that gets built, that we would we would save administration and storage wise and all that. It's probably $20 a container if I had to guess. So I think it would be worth it just to see if what she just mentioned was true, that they can automate and pick up the 32-gallon thing. I don't see the downside to actually letting that happen.
Yeah, we're projecting the purchase of 7,400 carts, right? So if what we're saying, if it's true, and we need out of that 7,400, 200 32-gallon carts. That's something we would.
Is that 74 with both recycling and trash, or 7,400 each?
7,400 each.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's just worth doing it. We have the time to look at it now, so we send a survey out for anything under the moon. We might as well just do it and see.
Well, good. Jackie, anything on your side?
Yeah, the only other thought or question that I have in reviewing Chris's slides, Chris, you had mentioned that the old plastic containers and metal containers could be recycled at some of our collection events. I know those collection events, even now, when we have them in town, can be pretty, can have a lot of long lines, can have, a lot of waiting. So it might be good to incorporate into the budget, or at least plan for, the cost of additional collection events, because I would think, especially initially, when if residents were to be getting these barrels, that there would be a big interest in recycling existing containers.
Yeah, no, definitely.
And that would
We were
raise the cost.
thinking about that possibilities.
Yeah. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Allison?
So I'm looking at all of this and I'm thinking about sizes, and I do think that there's the two outliers, right? There's people that are gonna be producing less rubbish. My household probably would produce less than that, although there's 4 of us and I have 2 kids, but we do compost, so that makes a big difference. I'll also just a plug, I've never had a rodent try to get into my trash can, because all that's in there is cat litter and plastic, so they have no interest in it, so it's a plus for composting. But so there's those people, but then I'm also thinking about the folks that are producing extra rubbish and half filling their recycling container. It feels like a very obvious temptation to aspirationally recycle things so that your things get into a bin. So I'm wondering, is the town thinking about that, as far as if I fill up my rubbish bin and my recycle bin's only half full, it's gonna start to look a lot more appealing to me to maybe throw a few things in that recycle bin that I'm not so sure if they can be recycled. And I just can't, I wouldn't do that, but I see I think people will be tempted, is my question.
I mean, I'll say that the intention is for the folks that are picking up the trash to visually inspect the recycling, and if it's contaminated, essentially it's stickered and not picked up, because the effects actually, if it's mixed into the recycling, is worse.
Exactly.
The whole batch is contaminated.
Yes.
Right.
Our whole stream would be contaminated if they.
And it costs us more at the end.
Yes.
Right. So the handler of the recycled product essentially has an adder, right? So if it's clean recycling, then it's one price. If it's dirty recycling, it's even more, right? So we do a lot of education around proper recycling and why contaminating recycling is bad. I do understand what you're saying, and we're humans, and it'll happen.
I was just thinking, from an automated perspective, who's doing that visual inspection? Are there thoughts being given to that? Just because I feel like, I don't think people fully realize that if you contaminate the recycling stream, you're just essentially creating a rubbish stream.
It's bad.
You're not actually, all of it just goes in the trash.
Absolutely.
So I think that would be my concern with 2 very mismatched streams. If people are really filling up those rubbish bins and they're partially filling the recycle bin. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we'll roll on. All right. Thanks, folks. Thanks for coming. Thanks for
Chris.
sharing.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next on our agenda, vote easement request previously approved by town meeting at Summit Village.
I'll give a very short summary on that one. The easement is before you. It is an easement that was voted as Article 13 at town meeting in April, actually, but it just took us a little bit of time to get the easement finalized and countersigned by the other party. It's related to Summit Village. I mean, it was approved by town meeting.
So in fact, we approved it first, didn't we?
Yes, we approved it first in
Then it went to
February, and then town meeting in April, and now we just gotta sign the actual document before it's recorded.
And there are no changes, no nothing. This is just the next step in the process.
Reviewed by town council.
Great. Okay, board members, any questions on this, comments? Jackie, anything on your side?
No.
Have a motion? Oh, sorry, Chris.
Yeah, from my recollection, was this the two things that we did with the ARPA money kind of thing, or am I making that up? Wasn't there
No. So
Chuck in that whole
you're
scenario?
thinking Zero Sanborn Lane. That was the plot of land that is if we surveyed it was to be gifted to us. The property has been surveyed. All of the deeds and everything is done, and Conservation Commission has the vote for it first. Once Conservation votes first, it will come to the Select Board. We think it's going to come before you in March, but that's a separate issue. This is an easement to our pump station, essentially to add basically a pipe, and it's at no cost. It's an easement at no cost to the town.
I should read the motion, please.
Yep. Move to approve the foregoing water line easement from Summit Village Condominium Trust to the town of Reading and agree bound by its terms as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Karen. Any comments, questions? None appearing. We will take a roll call vote. Okay, so to grant the easement would be a yes vote. So I'll ask you first, Jackie.
Yes.
Karen.
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Carlo.
Yes.
Mark, yes. You're unanimous. Thanks, folks.
Thank you.
Next, preview warrant for April town meeting, please. No.
Sounds great. Thank you.
You signing anything?
Yeah. There's a copy of two easements that we can travel around. Ms. Kaling, would you mind pulling up page 41 of the packet?
Oh wait, this is the,
There were two.
Berkeley.
Yeah,
Well, this is it right here.
yes, it's yours.
two copies, one for us, one for them.
I got one.
No, it's this.
Thank you. Okay, so in your packet, I'll do basically a review of the articles. The full warrant begins on page 43, and just as a reminder, the select board has to vote to close the warrant at your next meeting. So the February 21st, the first article is an article that appears at all. Is the warrant for the local election. The second article is the written report. Typically, the newly selected select board chair will do a state of the town at the beginning of town meeting. Instructional motions is article number 3. That's every town meeting, and it is deferred until the last night. Article 4 is an article that occurs every day, every town meeting, and it is to amend the capital program. There are a few amendments that we will definitely finalize and present to you, or changes to the capital plan on the 21st. Article 5 is an article to amend the FY23 budget, and essentially is any lines that we foresee going into deficit or additional funding requests. So Sharon and I just had a meeting today to finalize those and just to to highlight, I guess, one big thing that is going to affect us this town meeting is retirements at in the police department in particular. We had 3 high-level officers retire, and our policy is that if you give 6-month notice, then you get, you know, basically the entire vacation allowance is paid off for the year. So those can add up when higher paid people in the town retire.
Excuse me, Phil, just for 1 second. So just to be clear, they get the full vacation that they haven't used for that year in which they retire? Is that what it is?
That's correct.
Okay. This, because we have eliminated the issues of accrued things and stuff.
Sick pay, sick time is no longer on the table, but it's just a vacation, and it's only triggered if they give us a notice in writing 6 months ahead of their retirement, and it's only for retirements. It's not if you leave the town. It's just for retirements. Article number 6 is again an article that shows up every time meeting to approve payment of prior year's bills. We do not have any. So that we expect that to be tabled. Article number 7 is the annual article to officially move funds from our budget to the OPEB fund. If you remember, we initially funded our FY23 budget with $500,000 into OPEB, along with other funding from the enterprises. So water, sewer, and stormwater. I believe that the total is $685,000. So it's back to where it used to be before, pre-pandemic. Article number 8 is to move funds from 40R. So this is the bonus payment that we get for 40R projects. We expect this article to be indefinitely postponed. We just got, if you recall, $563,000 in November. So that kitty is about at $1 million right now, which is nice and can be used for anything related to capital. Article number 9 is approving revolving funds, and essentially town meeting annually has to approve the spending allowance for revolving funds every year, and that is presented in the motion through a table. Article number 10 is to approve Affordable Housing Trust Fund. This was a placeholder, and it was because we hadn't received the Attorney General's approval. Now that we have, I'll confirm with Town Council whether we can table that article, because we just weren't sure when this approval would be received. Article 11 is a new one, so that's a new one that was requested by the school committee, and I believe they are voting on it officially at their meeting on the 9th. Essentially, they have been very sensitive to the fluctuating cost of special education, right? And how one year could be a lot, and another year could be not so much, and essentially that causes them to over budget and essentially tie up money, if you will. So what the other towns and cities have done is that they create a stabilization fund that can be used just for special education. How that works essentially is it can only be it's up to 2% of the 2% of the cost that they spend on special education at a maximum. So it's capped. It's not like it can be humongous. The creation of the fund has to be done by town meeting, but once the fund is created, allocation from that fund to pay special education can be done with a vote of the school committee and a vote of the select board. So it's vote of school committee and it's vote of the select board. It is allowed by Mass General Law under a special law that basically allows this, and it is just for special education stabilization fund.
So this is request to come out of free cash.
So this is a request. How they envision funding this fund is with end of year savings. So essentially, if you recall, what would happen is they would the school committee would track basically the special education line and would say, we have money left, let's maybe prepay future years' cost. Let's let's move that money around to other needs. But it was always done at the end. So what essentially the intent is, any year-end savings that are in that line would be used to build up this fund. But what it would do essentially, it would provide a safety net so that the following year we don't have to over budget the special education line year over year.
So is this something that, I'm sure the superintendent is presenting something to the school committee, could we?
On Thursday.
On Thursday, yeah, I think it'd be good for us to kind of hear what that is also.
Sure.
Maybe if we could ask the superintendent, just to understand what it is, other communities experience.
Yeah.
What happens, because right now, any leftover funds get returned to the general fund, right? Actually show up in free cash.
That is one practice. Another practice is they have in the past prepaid costs for the following year or they've used it for other things, to fund projects, to fund renovations, to fund it has been used for other things.
Got it. And then the other question would be, would they fund it in its first year from what's ever left over from the previous year's budget, so it doesn't require kind of a new allocation? It would be funded by if there's something that's left.
Yes, that's the intent. Essentially, they would review it at the end of the year and say, if we have however money is left, then they would vote to put it into that fund. So the school committee votes to put it into that fund, but the select board votes to get it out. So to get it out of that fund is a vote of the school committee and a vote of the select board.
And are there caps established? I'm sorry, I see your hand.
There's capped in terms of how much could be in the fund in general. Yeah. And it's 2% of what they spend on a special education annually.
Okay, so it'd be great to see kind of what that looks like. I'm sure the superintendent. I'm sorry, go ahead, Karen.
That's all good questions. I was just thinking, so at the last school committee meeting, they did talk about this, and I do like the idea because we have seen such wild fluctuations recently, and then they're scrambling because they get hit with a surprise. So I do like this idea in general. I'm curious, it's a bylaw change. Have they had time to? I'm surprised to see it on annual town meeting, so they don't have time to run it by the bylaw committee and all that. I guess we're putting it on here, and we're going to close it.
Yes.
Because I answer my own questions.
Exactly. So we put it once the select board officially votes it, then the bylaw committee says, okay, this is real. This is not just a request. So the what the bylaw committee is reviewing is that this requires town meeting to adopt Mass General Law section. So it's not the creation of a new bylaw. It's that the bylaw committee any time that the town or town meeting adopts a Mass General Law, then the bylaw committee has to endorse that or review it.
Okay, so this is it's a little different. So we're not writing it. A lot of times we're writing it. We're just saying it's available. Let's adopt it.
That's what we're doing. We're adopting the existing Mass General Law. Yes. Great. So yeah, I will speak to the superintendent to some more details and also to present on the meeting on the 21st. On the article number 12 is the budget, basically the annual adoption of our FY24 budget, which we've talked about before. Article 13 is the debt authorization. So what we are requesting is for town meeting to approve this debt in April, but it will not be issued until sometime in sometime in calendar year, sometime in fiscal year 24. So it could be a late fall rollout, it could be a spring rollout, but we feel that if town meeting does authorize it, it would give us some time to do the prepping, do the surveys, do all the things that we want to do. Article 14 is so we are ARPA funded, or the select board funded with ARPA, $1.5 million for Birch Meadow Phase 1. If you recall, is the parking lot at Imagination Station, and the spine along with the building, the little building. So The reason why it's there is because the architect is saying that the cost estimate could be higher than what they presented in the fall to RAC, right? They presented $1.5 million of cost. They're saying, right now with the inflation, it could be. They said $2.5 million, and I said no way, right?
Thank you for saying that.
It could be. So we are hoping to go out to bid, which is why we need the CPDC to vote it, so that by town meeting we have a firm cost and we know, one, whether we're asking for money, and two, how much money we're asking for.
And so, sorry, it says transfer funds.
So the reason why it's transfer funds is we have two projects right now that have significant amount of money left over. So one is Turf One that has money left over, and if you recall Parker Roof, the Parker Roof we originally authorized 2.7, it came at 1.3. So we have
Okay,
we
so
have,
that's the source of funds.
yes, it will not be new debt. It will not be new debt.
Karen has a question, sir.
Just before we get too far, I was just wondering, after our discussion about the rubbish and recycling carts tonight, would that be kind of worded up to the amount?
Sure.
Because it seems like between the rollout and based on some of the conversations we had tonight, maybe further input from the might go about, think about different solutions, which if it is possible to roll out a couple of sizes, might change the amount you need.
Yeah, we're sure. In terms of what dollar amount you're saying? Okay.
Yeah, so kind of like an up to
Sure.
debt authorization as opposed to because it's coming up so quickly too, but anyway. It does require a 2/3 vote, so it's a bigger hurdle.
Sure.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Article 15 is transferring from a closed project to the Gazebo Circle Pump Station. Essentially, I think the Charles Street Pump Station, which has been done for some time, that's by the Killam School at the end, has $117,000 left over. Where we just want to close that account out, move it to Gazebo Circle Pump Station, which is just starting out. Same thing with downtown water main project. There was a previous phase of work on Main Street that has been done since 2016 and has money laying around. We want to use that money up and not have it sitting there. So we're going to ask town meeting to basically move those funds around. So Gazebo Circle is 117. Downtown water main is about 365, I believe, 300 something.
So you're saying $365,000 has been sitting in this account since 2016?
The project was a 2016 project. Basically, what happens is you do want to leave it open for some time in case there's issues, in case there's any. But now that it's been a few years, we are ready to close it out, to move on and use the fund for something else.
Okay, great.
Article 17 is Mr. Haley's a favorite. It's the annual MWRA interest-free loan. This one is even better. So this one is for sewer, and 75% of it is actually not a loan. It's a grant, so it's free. So it's $1 million. 75% of it is a grant. 25% of it we pay back 10 years interest-free.
Awesome.
18 is to rescind debt authorization from Turf 2, which was done before Turf 1, and we did not borrow $402,000. So basically, it's to just take that back, rescind. 19 and actually, Kaylin, if you can go to that actual article, might make more sense. It is on page 48, Article 19. So what the school committee flagged that our current bylaw, section 4.2.2, requires that every employee of the town, RMLD, and the schools receive a physical exam before they're employed, which is probably a legacy thing from the past. The school committee council basically flagged it as not being in line with current policies, and that it could lead to, you know, us rescinding an offer to a candidate after a failed physical, not drug test, this is a physical, and it might get dicey. So essentially, the school committee requested that we make this change. And essentially, it just says that we will do physicals if it's required by law. So police officers have to get a physical. That's required. That's required by law. Firefighters also, DPW employees also, right? So if it's required by law, we're going to do a physical. If it's not required by law, then we will not. So it's more in line with the times. And that is a bylaw change. So that will require by law. By the committee. Article 20 is a request from Laura, actually. So it's not a bylaw, it was a vote taken by town meeting in 2012. And essentially it's if you don't register your dog before June 1st, then you are issued a $10 fine plus $5 every month thereafter. Right, so every month you just add $5, and Laura has said that there's people that have $3,000 in fine because they either moved out of Reading or the dog died. They can't get a hold of them. So she has a spreadsheet basically where she keeps tracking this $5 requirement per month. She wants to clean it out basically and say we will issue a $10 fine, no monthly escalators going forward.
And does she feel that $10 is enough of a motivation to do this, or is $10 really kind of?
She wants to make it $350. No, I'm kidding.
That's more of a motivator.
Yeah, I'm with Mark on this one. $10 is nothing to me.
Yeah,
I'm not getting out of bed for $10.
Yeah. So what town council said is essentially we can't be capricious with fees, right? We've got to justify. We got to justify the level of effort. So essentially, you know, we would need to. If it's $200, then we need to justify that it's costing us $200 for you as an impact of a fee, because otherwise it's an unlawful tax. So $10 is a fee that is nominal and we could probably enforce, and it's not it can't be something that we can't defend, and I will share with the board her email thread with me and Laura because it's got to be something that Laura needs to justify as reasonable.
So it already was $40, truthfully, if it was $10 and then $5 a month escalating for 6 months. So that's $40 already. So why 10?
So it was $10 plus $5 every month that you don't right, and it doesn't reset in January. It keeps going. It keeps going forever.
But if that was reasonable, then
I know, why change it?
It's only unreasonable until it gets challenged, right? I mean, I will share the recommendation from town council, and I think she's joining in a few minutes probably.
Yeah, I think that, you know, overtime parking is more than this, and we may even
Lunch is more than
address
this,
it.
Mark.
Yeah.
Red
I
Knight's
know
probably
$10
more.
doesn't do anything, and
Well,
it's
we
less
have-
than what we currently charge. It's kind of like, really?
We could amend this, can't we?
Does anyone know what the fee is? What is the license the license fee?
$10 to register your dog.
Only 10?
$10 to register your dog.
That seems too low too.
So it does seem to
Feels like we have a
low.
future agenda item to look
Yeah.
at.
Interesting.
Again, it's got to be
Because it's gonna cost a
reasonable.
lot more to have to send out enforcement. Like, they don't make $10 an hour, and it's not gonna take an hour to like go enforce this.
You can get a dog park with the money you can make off.
I wonder what other
Again,
communities do about
It's
this.
not a tax, right? It's not an additional revenue stream. It's got to be.
Yeah.
No, we
gotta
need
be in
dogs to be
line with-
licensed, that's
Right,
all.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And timely.
Yes.
I wonder if we could find out a little bit about what other communities do. Sure. I mean, it's not that this is a mega item, but it'd be great to get dogs licensed.
Excellent of her to bring it up. Seems the way we have it on the books now seems a little wonky.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just for clarification, if I didn't register my dog, I would get charged $10, and then if I decided to not do it through his existence, that'd be like $160. Like, and that, I don't know. This seems way out of whack to me. Like, why would I ever just do it then?
Yeah,
It seems.
It's $10 to register your dog, or it's $10 not to register.
Yeah. Good, I like that, Mark. Yeah.
10 or 20, which one do you want to
It's
pay?
like, 3 students.
I'd rather pay the 10, but yes, I'm with you.
Trying to think, but nothing happens.
We will look into it, into the fee.
Sorry, seems like a small one to pick on, it just doesn't seem right though.
And then Article 21, I'll skip over because we have a big agenda coming up about it. And then Article 22 is a placeholder essentially for the Green Communities fee. We continue. I just spoke to Brad Jones' office today, and we're still waiting for Green Communities to issue a final guidance on what it's going to take. So we don't know much about Article 22. And Article 23, it is essentially our annual to review members of town meeting who haven't attended, with the option to remove them, but by vote of town meeting, should we wish.
I'd like to make a disclaimer that the board loves dogs.
Okay.
Love dogs.
That's fine.
Especially registered dogs, licensed dogs.
Registered dogs, and licensed dogs.
Okay, all right, discussion on town manager 2023 goals. So, I wanted to put this on because we're in a new year, we've done our review of Fidel. It'd be good to establish goals. And again, I thought it'd be good just to kind of start the discussion, generate some ideas amongst ourselves, and then come back to it at our next meeting and actually vote on some goals. Fidel had shared with us, and actually in the review form, we kind of had, what the goals were. I've heard feedback from different board members, more quantitative, things that we can actually measure, see what's going on. But maybe this is a chance for us just to kind of throw out some ideas to get it started. Anyone want to start?
I think, obviously, I liked last year's goals, and I think from a learning perspective as a board member, and, between Trash Gate and Construction Gate and all these gates, what have we learned and what we can do better? And Trash Gate was not our fault, by the way. I know that, sorry, but, so I'll retract that. Construction Gate was a different story. And again, only so much the town manager can do, but, what did we learn from that experience and how it impacted residents and in particular business owners, especially on a major holiday? I mean, just imagine, that happened every year. It's not, but, better communication, and you're not going to reach everybody, but that's what kind of sticks out for me is how do we, and we've talked about this before, how do we communicate to the town, the town website and social media and the Chronicle and all this stuff. It's just, it always comes back to, we're playing catch up and we're apologizing and we're just, sometimes we have egg on our face and sometimes it's controlled and sometimes we can't control it, but I don't know if that's a goal. It's more of a, what can we do better? So communication between departments with the downtown business owners. I think we were all caught off guard. I know I was. I'm just outside downtown, my building, but that impacted us greatly. So we'll have to think about other stuff, but that's what comes to top of mind.
Chris, you ready?
Thanks, Mark. To semi-piggyback off Carlos' thing, I have a fantastic idea for you, Fidel, is maybe an interactive map for all the construction that's currently going on, because at any given point, I don't know how anyone gets around Reading at this point.
Sure.
The water main construction just seems like we might as well just keep it going forever. So something where I know that it was mentioned before that National Grid or whatever just calls you up in the morning and spend like, yeah, we're going over here now and deal with it. I don't know if Jane or somebody could just update said section of the map to be like, well, now this street is closed for that day or something that's going to hopefully take 30 seconds that, at least it provides some feedback to residents to see that on any given day, this is what the traffic pattern's gonna look like. So I guess that's one of my things, some interactive kind of map-ish kind of scenario, so.
Well, I would like to have another goal that says we're gonna, exactly what Chris and Jake came up with tonight, we're gonna recommit to always looking for grant opportunities, as 2023 is gonna be another blockbuster year of opportunity. And then our climate mandates of 2030 are quickly approaching, so I would love to talk about how we might make some progress this year towards that.
Jackie?
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, I just took a quick look again at the evaluation forms that we did for the last meeting. I think one of Fidel's probably his most important job, as I see it, is as a leader at Town Hall and as a developer of the talent in our town government, and so, or in our town staff, I should say. So I know we've got a number of new people in relatively high levels, so I hope to see kind of more development and retention of those folks. I also think, to Karen's point, whether it's the climate mandates, the green communities, MBTA communities, we're looking in the next year or so at a number of different obligations that are coming at us, either from the state or because of what we've decided to pursue for things like green communities. And so I hope that, and would like to see a goal that would speak to how Fidel can help across boards and committees, and also, between us and town meeting, kind of understand the background of all of these items, because I think for us to make good decisions on things like, any zoning updates that we might need to consider for MBTA communities, or, some of the items that are already coming up with respect to green communities at the town meeting, the next town meeting, I think we need context for those items, and I think we look to Fidel to provide that, either directly or through staff. So, thanks.
Thanks, Jackie. So I'd like to piggyback off the one, Jackie, you mentioned too, in terms of training and development. I'm gonna add training to the development discussion too. I think that's, it's a great opportunity, and I think we wanna make sure we as a board are giving you the tools, and then you as the manager are able to work with them. We've got a lot of great enthusiasm, and we lost a lot of experience. And so now to take that enthusiasm and develop it and keep it rolling and turn those into what should and could be great opportunities. I think that's a goal we should have on the list. I think something related to implementing certain key projects or contracts during the year, we probably should take a look, and you may have thoughts on which ones those are, in fact. And that may address some of the concerns on the communication of certain things going on. It's just keeping these projects kind of front and center in the community and watching what they are. I think that I'm actually interested in potentially talking about progress on kind of the next senior center as potentially being one of the goals. I don't know that it's having it built, but progress. We can define what that means. But I think it's time for the community to take that step. And it's happening in a big way now, and I think that that's a good thing to kind of have on the list of priorities. Is that generating other concepts, Chris?
Yeah, I think, I know that Fidel, since you've been here now, whether or not it's you or everyone else around you, et cetera, with the whole grant situation, I don't know if it's worth us exploring getting a full-time grant writer for the town, or is that something that you and Chris and everyone else are just randomly doing? Like, if we really had somebody, I assume they'd pay for themselves. But maybe not. Maybe you're just doing things as well as other staff members and it's not worth it. So I don't know how that falls in line with things, but it would be a position that would actually make money technically.
So kind of piggybacking on Karen's comment about let's look for more grant opportunities, the question becomes, what's the best way to do it? Do we need a resource to help?
And a lot of communities are making a similar decision, and what I heard is that grant writers are getting scarcer. So yeah, if we want to do that, might take some effort, but it's a great idea.
That said, I think you've been incredibly successful with
Yep,
the grant writer.
absolutely.
That's why I'm like, is there some database or like how, are we missing grants because we don't know they exist? Like,
Not anymore.
like how did Chris find out about the grant thing? Like, did you tell him, by the way, check and see if there's grants available? Did he do it on his own? Like, what was the process? How did that even happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's there is no shortage of emails in the day saying, hey, here's a grant, hey, here's a grant, here's a grant. The issue is grabbing it, right? And is this a match to what we need, right? And do we have a project for it? And how heavy is the lift, right? So it's an evaluation process. I think that we did so good this year that now we need to execute on the grants, right? Like Malia Soms is one of them, right? Are we going to get another $5 million chunk towards a project? I hope so, but now that we have this $5 million, now we got to build it. So it's really going to go in cycles. You know what I mean? Like we got a ton of money. Now we got to build it, right? I mean, in all honesty, my focus in terms of grant this year is Haven Street. So that could be one where it could be getting $5 million. And and those were the big ones, right? I mean, the $5,000 here, $10,000 there, those are fine, but the flagships are the big ones.
Do you think if we had a grant writer, we'd be more likely to get a higher figure than what you or your staff is capable of? Like, how's it working out? Like, are we seeing that other cities and towns that have a professional grant writer just getting significant grants compared to other, just ones without them?
Yeah, I mean, in my experience, I think it's better aligned when you align them with a department, right? So like it's somebody that has grant experience inside the planning department, right? And they're looking at planning stuff, right? Or somebody in DPW, and those are the big ones, right? I mean, planning and DPW are really like the ones that are getting the majority of the money. So I would say adding staff in those departments that can do other stuff. You know what I mean? That not just sitting around and applying one grant for the police, one grant for over here. Like what it's more aligned with the work. It's my experience. But I mean, if we're talking about additional staff, I think the one thing that keeps coming up is planning. So we have lost some staff. We are in the hiring process to replace Andrew, the senior staff planner, and it's hard.
Andrew in his past role.
In his past role,
planner.
Senior planner. So the pool is just it's hard out there right now. But that is one that we are constantly talking about. What else can we do to give him more support.
So I'm wondering if the next great start in terms of some ideas, so you're taking notes. Would it make sense for you to give us some feedback?
Absolutely.
In terms of what you think are some reasonable goals, taking into account some of the things that have been discussed tonight as well. Yeah. And then we can make that part of the discussion for our next meeting. And then I would suggest maybe if board members have other thoughts, zip them off to Fidel directly. And maybe there's a document that could get published to go in the packet for the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Does that work for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Cool. Next. Okay, discuss and vote to sign lease extension for the Reading Ice Arena Authority. Just as and Carl, thank you for coming. One of the things that we had talked about, and board members, you can correct me if I'm wrong here too, is that a couple of things. One, from a legal point of view, we do need to sign it, but it's not that we really have a lot of input in terms of sign it, not sign it. That's not really where we are. There have been a couple of questions and comments that have come up. There are some letters back and forth. We had talked about not wanting to disturb a busy season so that the timing, even if there are discussions that we want to have take place, we would defer to a little bit later, until hockey season has calmed down. So if I'm remembering correctly, I think that's pretty much what we had talked about. So tonight's discussion, my opinion, but obviously everyone can share more, is more kind of going through the formality, if you will, in terms of the lease, acknowledging that there are some questions in the community, and some of which are getting already discussed, but not to kind of dig into any questions in particular tonight, but rather save that for after hockey season, if there are things that are still unresolved. And it may be that things can be discussed more privately also and resolved in that way. So that was kind of my recollection and thinking. How does that fit with other board members' perceptions?
I'm just expecting we're going through the formality this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Okay. Anything from your side, Carl?
I just want to spend time with you.
Oh, well, hey, come on down.
I'm good. You're good, we're good.
Yeah, and I think different board members have had different, discussions with folks, and that's great, but we really want to take care of this document tonight. And then if questions remain, great, we can have discussions when it's prior to time for not hockey season, basically. Chris?
I think from my point of view that a majority of the questions that have been asked have been answered. And while this is a formality that, if we don't sign it, it's not our choice at this point. I don't see how we're supposed to give our input on an organization that we don't have control over what they do in the end anyway. We would just be tying up more free time a month, 2 months from now, whenever hockey gets over. There's going to be something else that comes up after that. So for me, obviously, it is a formality signing it, but it's a formality regardless until when? 30 years from now? Something like that? When this is completely over and done with? I think that's the way that the leases are going, and probably none of us are going to be around by then. So
I think structurally that's correct. I think that community members have raised some questions, and I think we kind of talked about tonight not being the time to go through those, whether or not there's anything to them or not. But the fact that they're coming up means that there's maybe an education process at minimum that can take place. But again, tonight I think the focus is not on, it really is on kind of this document, doing our duty as it relates to that. But I think there could be other discussions that take place. I wouldn't be ready to say, see you in 10 years or 30 years.
I guess to that point, that as long as IFRIA is fine with the way that things have been going, as long as Burbank's lawyer has been fine with the way that things are going, and stuff has been filed with the state, we have nothing else beyond that. Now, if there is issues that arise, I believe they've been asked and answered. So, but we can schedule something in the future if you like. I just would rather not waste anybody's time.
Yeah, maybe it's a quick discussion, but are we ready for a motion on this? Yeah, sure. Let's do it.
I move to approve the lease extension for the Reading Ice Arena Authority as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Karen. Any further discussion? Here, let's take a vote. So this is a vote basically approving as it is, signing the document for the extension. So a yes vote is approving and signing the document. So Jackie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
And Mark, yes. Let's sign that. Thank you. And next is future agendas. So I'd like to put fees, thanks, Rob. I'd like to put fees onto the list, kind of a review.
All fees.
I think all fees we should take a look at. So we've done this I think we did it 3 or 4 years ago. So we had a discussion about ambulance fees. We had a discussion about, I'm trying to think which ones. That one we've actually changed at different points in time. The dog licensing fees, I don't think we have. We know we're gonna wanna talk about parking fines and things like that, but we're waiting for PTTF to come back to us.
Yes, and they will come back February 21st.
Okay, so maybe what we do is we have the fee discussion kind of after we've heard the recommendation, or
Yeah, with regards to the dog fee, that needs to happen on the 21st because it is a town meeting approval. So town meeting approval for some reason sets the dog fees.
so
Is it a bylaw?
It's a bylaw. It's a bylaw. And I'll forward you the latest communications bylaw 8.8.2.1.6.
You know what, if we're gonna,
So it is.
if we're gonna take
It's
this
set
to
by-
town meeting, I would recommend, it's gonna be pretty silly if we go to town meeting and then we take a bigger look at it, we come back in the fall and do it again. I understand the concern with the fines. I'm wondering if there's any research that Laura could do between now and the 21st.
Doesn't work, absolutely.
Because if we find everybody else charging $25, then that would, and she's okay with it, that would be a simple change and we get it in front of town meeting, and I think we get further along.
We'll do
Okay,
that on the before the
Thanks.
21st.
does the article have to have the dollar amount in it? Or can it be like many of the other articles where the presentation defines it specifically?
It was written with the fee in it. I will see. I will ask that question.
I mean, if we can agree to something sooner, then it's fine, but I'm thinking maybe it takes a little more homework.
Well, I think, yeah, I agree with Karen on this, but I think, so if it goes to town meeting and it stays the same, it can't be amended. Or can it be amended on the town meeting floor?
I mean, I guess you could amend anything, right? But-
you know.
No, I want to avoid that.
Okay.
I want to avoid that 1,000%. But so, yeah, I think if we have to table it, okay, another 6 months, but I think, again, it's not life-changing for anybody. But, yeah, these things need to be revisited every so often. And you get a multi-dog discount or whatever, and cats don't have to be registered, correct?
No.
What about ferrets?
Toucans, turkeys.
Okay, anything else for future agenda?
Yeah, not really an agenda item, I don't think it's needed, but I'd love to get in the next within the next 2 memos, a kiosk update.
Sure.
Because that's gonna need a lot of planning to roll that out.
Yeah, and Ben is heard it loud and clear. That is going to be his job for a few months.
We don't want kiosk gate to happen.
We don't want kiosk gate to happen. Kiosk gate will. We want to know when it's happening. How's that?
Watergate is gonna happen.
Watergate is coming, yeah.
Chris, that's you.
Yeah, no, I just briefly looked at North Reading's dog licensing thing just to see what they do, and their stuff is, they have, seniors are getting it for no cost, males, females, dogs, neutered. They got all scaling different things in here, but it goes between 10 and 20 bucks and 30 kind of thing. I do like the idea of seniors not getting charged for something, kind of, and the way that they're doing things. So I don't know if what they're doing is legal, but they seem to have a whole menu to pick off.
So we have neutered, non-neutered. I believe the rates are different.
Yes.
Neutered is 10, non-neutered is 20.
So.
Yeah, there's data out there.
And Meadowbrook update, is that still on the future agendas, or what's the deal?
It's on the 1st. It's on the 21st.
Okay.
Jackie, anything?
Only other item I thought of, I don't know if it's here, is Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Is that something we need to put back on the list after? Is there another legislative step now that we've heard from the AG, or is it now back to us?
Yeah, I just got this today. I'll review this with my counsel. honestly, they had a lot of comments on, and it was only on that article, so, yeah.
They do, yeah, and I know a couple weeks ago, we talked about kind of me providing a little bit of background on, these trust funds and how peer communities are operating them and using them. I just want to make sure I have the right timing for that, so.
Definitely.
Slightly out of order question on the revolving funds. Is Sharon looking at them to see if any of them need adjustment?
Yep, absolutely.
Great.
I have another, I guess not agenda item, another memo update on Station 1.
Sure.
And we, I think did we order something? We did order something.
We did. We ordered the environmental, we got it back.
We did get it back.
We got it back. All
right.
Yeah.
So that will be good.
Talk about it.
And then we need to get another future meeting with RMLD, joint meeting to talk about the whole complex. I think in the first 6 months of the year.
Sounds good. All set? Let's go to meeting minutes.
So I only received edits from Mark, so I'll pull those up if you want to look at them.
Okay, I apologize. I do have some liaison report edits.
So the edits I put in actually were on some of your comments, just defining what was going on. The
Thank you.
Fuel stabilization is RMLD.
Exactly.
Fuel stabilization fund, and suggests RMLD consider its use, the fund's use in the future to stabilize rates after announcing was it a 10% increase, 10 point something? Is that right?
I can't remember.
Whatever the rate increase was. 9?
Thank you.
Thank you. 9% increase.
Because it was
I think it's 9.3.
bounced
That's
around
technically
14.
what it is.
I don't have Mark's eyes, but is that second RML
B.
B?
Yeah, board of
Okay.
commissioners.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's exactly legit. No, that was on purpose, RML.
Board of Commissioners,
Yeah,
BOC.
BOC. Is it RMLD BOC or just BOC?
You're playing for the Yankees.
I've seen them refer to themselves as BOC, but
Yeah,
yeah.
Board of
Okay.
Yeah,
Commissioners.
because that could just infer a typo.
Yep, that's a great idea.
Okay, and then the only other thing is that at the MMA conference, I supported the fiscal policy resolution on behalf of the town.
What you mean?
So just add that to the back. Yep, right, what you're doing, Kayla. Perfect.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Cameron, say that one more time.
Supported the fiscal policy resolution. Oh, I'm sorry, fiscal as in money, FIS. On behalf of the town.
All right. And then under doctor's office hours, they were blank, so I filled them in. February 8th, 10 to 11, Pleasant Street Center. Feb 14th, 10:30, 11:30 at the library.
Valentine's Day, Mark.
Big day. No broken hearts there. And I think that was all. Oh, no, I did one more back at Town Manager Annual Review. So I thought to kind of record what happened is all members expressed Town Manager has done a great job so far, being very present in the community and accomplishing many things.
Good, sounds good.
And then one last one, discuss responses to RFP. First paragraph, last sentence, yeah, I just least expensive rather than cheapest. That's it.
I think that was it.
Anybody have any others? No, good. Jackie, anything on your side?
No.
All right, you have a motion, please.
Move to approve the meeting minutes from January 24th, 2023 as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Not appearing. Let's take a vote. Jackie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
Mark, yes. 5-0. Okay, last item on the agenda, discuss responses to the request for proposal for the purchase property for municipal use. So, I dug in just a little bit to understand better kind of what the typical process would be when we have multiple responses to a bid. And the answer is that in open session, typically, a board would discuss which one they're interested in, not the details of money or terms, but which one they're interested in. Because nominally, we have to select one if we're gonna pick any, and then agree to negotiate with them. Rather than, we can't have both kind of lingering out there. So normally this would happen in open session. We'd have that discussion. If the board was comfortable doing that, having that session now, and I see we have Jenny and Ivrea here, hi folks. If the board was comfortable having that discussion now in open session, to rate on the merits and pick one, not relating to price or terms, we could do that in open session. Alternatively, sorry, that would be kind of the typical way this is done. Alternatively, we could go into executive session and have the discussion. We have to, at some point, select one and only one, or zero, in open session, in order to be able to go forward to negotiate.
In open session.
We have to come, there has to be an open session where we say, we're picking bid A or bid B or neither.
Okay.
Ivrea and Jenny, did I do that reasonably well?
Yeah, so just to summarize, I think the board has sort of two paths forward right now. If the board feels comfortable, you can compare the two options now and vote to award the contract to one of the two respondents subject to successful contract negotiations, and then enter into executive session and discuss, price and some of those more sensitive terms. The second option is you could discuss what you feel comfortable discussing in open session, enter into executive session, discuss the sensitive terms of both properties, and then come out of executive session into open session to award. The main point is that the awarding of the selection has to happen in open session.
So I think we can take either path.
I prefer option 2, personally.
Other folks?
I think it's getting late.
Yeah, so I think our plan, kind of coming into the meeting, I think our plan was that we would do option 2. I think that was my expectation. I think that was probably other people's expectation. The only wrinkle on that is that if we are gonna move ahead with one, we have to, in open session, award it.
We can come back from
We
executive.
can come back from executive and do it, yes.
Either way, we're talking about it.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Openly,
Yes,
either way.
yeah. The question kind of is where is the discussion before we award it?
All right, I got you. No, I
So I got Carlos with plan B, plan 2.
Option
2. Other folks have a feeling?
Jackie?
Yeah, that was also, option 2 was my understanding of how this would go.
So, unless there's objection, let's do that.
Yeah, I could go either way. Typically, I'd go option 1 in this kind of scenario, but I'm fine with 2 as well, so.
Okay, so why don't we do this? So then, why don't we get a motion that moves us to executive session under purpose 6 to consider purchase, exchange, lease, yada, yada, yada. And at the back of it say, and return to open session this evening. Can I ask you to, is there anything people want to talk about first? Oh, sorry, go ahead, Ivrea.
I was just gonna say, and you want to make it clear that you're continuing on with this agenda item topic, so that individuals that are interested understand that the topic is going to be continued to be discussed in open session.
got it. You can wiggle that in?
All right, move to enter under purpose 6 to consider the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of 25 Haven Street and 17 Harden Street as the chair declares that an open meeting could have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body, to invite town council Avery Freed and Jenny Merrill, town manager Fidel Maltez, and executive assistant Caitlin Nacella to attend the executive session and to return to open session to continue the discussion.
Hold it.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion on the motion? Good. Okay. Let's take a vote. I will do a roll call vote. Start with you, Jackie.
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
Mark? Yes. So we will move to executive session and we will be coming back. So we go to executive session now. so I'm calling the select board back to order in open session. The board has, is there an echo?
I'm here.
Big time?
I think the door.
Oh, the door, okay. So the board had discussions on the topic of the responses to the request for proposal. And we have a motion that we're gonna make in terms of accepting one of the bids, subject to successful negotiations. Chris, can I ask you to read that motion, please?
Move to authorize the town manager to send notice of award the contract to Jala Hospitality LLC, care of Azad Legacy Partners, for the acquisition of 17 Hardin Street, subject to successful negotiations as discussed during tonight's meeting, and authorize Select Board member Mark Doxer to engage in such negotiations on behalf of the board.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Chris?
Thanks, Mark. I would just like to voice my opinion that I have significant financial questions and whatnot that needs to be addressed going forward. So hopefully, with your negotiations, those would be addressed.
Understood. Any other comments? None appearing. We will take a vote on this motion. So as I see you here, we're voting to support this motion, awarding the contract, subject to the conditions as Chris laid out. Jackie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
And Mark, yes. Awesome. Thanks, folks. Any other business tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, Carlo. I'll take a roll call vote on this one as well. Jackie?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Carlo?
Yes.
And Mark, yes. Thanks, folks. We are adjourned.
Thank you.